My daughter turned 22 beneath vaulted ceilings and filtered spring light in New Haven. The hall was heavy with applause, ambition, and the faint scent of polished wood. Yale banners hung in disciplined symmetry from the balcony railings. Faculty in dark robes sat in quiet authority. Parents leaned forward in expectation. I sat in the front row. I do not cry easily. I have poured concrete in sleet and negotiated contracts with men twice my size who mistook calm for weakness. But that morning I cried without concealment, because I had earned it. 11 years earlier, after divorcing Lauren, I became both father and mother. Emma was 11 then, old enough to understand silence but not betrayal. I moved us into a smaller home outside Denver. I restructured my construction contracts so I could be present for parent-teacher conferences and school events. I cut discretionary spending. I redirected bonuses. I funded her education the way I fund a project. Strategically, deliberately, long-term. Private school in Boston. Summer programs. SAT tutors. Debate camps. Dorm fees at Yale. Health insurance. Books. Emergency transfers when she insisted she did not need them but accepted them anyway. I built her future in layers. I remember standing outside her middle school auditorium during a winter recital, my boots still powdered with job site dust. Listening to her violin through a door I didn't open because I didn't want to distract her. I remember the first time she called me from college crying over a statistics exam. I remember wiring funds at midnight because she said her laptop had failed 2 days before finals. I never hesitated. Lauren left when Emma was 4. She said she had outgrown the marriage. The phrase was clinical, bloodless. She cited intellectual stagnation, personal evolution, professional incompatibility. I did not argue. I focused on custody. I secured primary placement. I paid support without delay. There was no mention of doubt, no insinuation, no hesitation regarding paternity. On every document I was father, and I believed it without qualification. After the ceremony, as graduates moved toward the courtyard, Emma approached me holding a sealed envelope. Her posture was straight, her expression composed. "This is part of my growing up," she said. I took it. The paper inside was clinical, sterile, laboratory language underlined in red. No paternal relationship found. I read it once, then again. The authentication number was valid. The laboratory credible. The percentage match, 0. At the bottom was a name, Professor Michael Harris. The same Michael Harris Lauren described in 2001 as just a colleague. The same man whose conferences ran long into evenings when I worked double shifts to cover the mortgage in our Chicago suburb. The same man whose academic publications Lauren once printed and left on our kitchen counter as if they were trophies. Emma's voice did not tremble. "My real father is Professor Michael Harris." Real. The word did not wound. It registered. "When did you do this?" I asked. 6 months ago. 6 months. Which meant she had known while I transferred her final tuition installment. While I booked my flight to New Haven. While I selected the suit I wore that morning. "Does he know?" I asked. Yes. There was no anger in her. Only certainty. I folded the document carefully. Precision is habit. When materials matter, you do not crease them carelessly. "Congratulations on graduating with honors," I said. She looked almost surprised. I did not create a scene. I did not challenge her publicly. A hall full of faculty and families is not a battlefield. It is a stage, and I do not perform impulsively. I returned to my hotel. In the quiet of that room, the applause echoing faintly in memory, I began reconstruction. I called my attorney in Denver. We have worked together 15 years on commercial disputes and property acquisitions. He understands documentation. I need archived communications from 2000 to 2002, I said. Emails, financial transfers, anything involving Lauren and Michael Harris. He did not ask why. "Understood," he replied. After the call, I sat at the small desk by the window and opened my laptop. I reviewed old tax returns stored digitally. I checked dates, Emma's birth, Lauren's conference travel, joint account withdrawals during that period. Patterns matter. Patterns reveal. Memory sharpened. Lauren staying late for research. Weekend symposiums. Grants. I worked double shifts, coming home to an empty kitchen and notes on the counter explaining departmental obligations. I never suspected paternity. Why would I? Emma had my temperament, my restraint, even my quiet humor. Biology, it turns out, can be persuasive even when absent. At midnight, I stood by the hotel window overlooking the campus courtyard. Students were celebrating below. Parents hugged sons and daughters who bore their faces, their gestures, their genetic signatures. I felt something different from grief. I felt recalibration. Love and biology are not identical structures. I had supplied the foundation. Another man supplied the blueprint. The question was not whether Emma was my daughter in memory. The question was what had been withheld. And by whom? I did not sleep. Instead, I drafted a timeline from Emma's conception year. I noted Lauren's academic travel, conference overlaps with Harris, unexplained withdrawals from our joint account. I do not react emotionally. I reconstruct. By morning, I had the beginning of a pattern. Silence is not weakness. It is observation. And I intended to observe everything. 3 days after Yale, my attorney called. He does not dramatize. He inventories. We recovered archived emails from an old university server, he said. Lauren kept a secondary academic account. It was not disclosed during divorce proceedings. Timeline? I asked. Late 2000 through mid-2001. Overlapping with Emma's conception window. There was a pause before he added, "You need to read them yourself." The file arrived encrypted. I opened it at my kitchen table in Denver at 5:40 a.m. Before sunrise, before distraction. The tone of the correspondence was not ambiguous. They were not colleagues. They were careful but not careful enough. Academic language wrapped around int asterisk Macy. Phrases like "our future buried inside research discussion." Travel confirmations that aligned precisely with weekends Lauren had claimed grant obligations. One email, dated 6 weeks before Emma's birth, was clinical in its detachment. "We need to discuss contingencies. If timing aligns with estimates, we cannot risk professional exposure." Timing aligns with estimates. Contingencies. Professional exposure. No mention of me. No acknowledgement. Only risk management. Another message from Lauren. He suspects nothing. Stability is preferable until tenure review. Stability. I closed the laptop. I did not experience shock. Shock is for men who expect fairness. I experienced confirmation. Lauren knew. Michael Harris knew. They calculated. The divorce in 2005 suddenly reframed itself. She did not leave because she outgrew the marriage. She left when tenure secured permanence, when risk subsided, when silence was no longer operationally necessary. I requested bank records from that period. There were transfers I had overlooked at the time, small, regular withdrawals into an account I never questioned because our income then was fluid. Construction contracts fluctuate. Academic grants fluctuate. I assumed movement was normal. The receiving account, as it turned out, was linked to a joint travel fund associated with Harris. Lauren did not simply conceal an affair. She concealed probability. The next call I made was not to Lauren. It was to a forensic accountant I had retained years ago during a partnership dispute in one of my development projects. He understands pattern recognition. I forwarded the financial records. Trace everything, I told him, from 2000 through the divorce settlement. By the end of that week, the structure was visible. During the year preceding Emma's birth, Lauren's travel increased by 42%. Conference reimbursements were duplicated, once through the university, once through joint marital funds. The difference accumulated in a private account. After Emma's birth, there were 2 unexplained deposits totaling $18,000 into that same account. Both originated from an academic discretionary fund controlled by Harris. $18,000. Not child support. Not acknowledgement. Risk mitigation. I flew to Chicago the following week. Lauren lives in Evanston now. A modest townhouse near the lake. Academically decorated. Efficient. She opened the door without surprise. Emma had told her about the graduation conversation. We sat at her dining table. No raised voices. No visible hostility. "I assume you've confirmed," she said. "Yes." She folded her hands. Composed. "Why?" I asked. She did not pretend confusion. "You were stable," she said. "Michael was not. At the time." At the time. He was up for tenure. A scandal would have destroyed his career. And mine. And mine, I asked. She met my eyes without flinching. "You wanted a child. You were a good father. You still are. Good. Functional. Stable. You deprived me of informed consent," I said quietly. She exhaled, almost impatiently. "You loved her. That was the outcome that mattered." Outcome, not truth. "Did he ever intend to claim her?" I asked. She hesitated for the first time. "No." The word landed without weight, because I already knew. Professor Michael Harris is now dean at a university in California. Married. 2 children with his wife. Reputation intact. I scheduled a meeting. San Diego. His office overlooked manicured campus lawns and disciplined palm trees. He greeted me professionally. Firm handshake. Controlled eye contact. "I assume this is about Emma," he said. "It is." He did not deny paternity. "I suspected," he admitted. "But Lauren made her decision." "You confirmed 6 months ago," I said. "Yes." "And chose silence." "I did not want to destabilize her life." "Her life." I watched him carefully. "You allowed me to finance it," I said. His jaw tightened slightly. "You were listed as father." "That was never the question." Silence. He leaned back. "I thought it was better for her." "Better. Convenient." "Did you contribute financially?" I asked. "No." Honesty, at least when confronted directly. "You understood there was a possibility from the beginning," I said. "Yes." "And chose professional preservation." He did not argue. I stood. "This is not a confrontation," I told him. "It is documentation." He frowned slightly. "Documentation of what?" "Knowledge. Timing. Financial movement. Intent." He said nothing. On the flight back to Denver, I reviewed everything again. Emails. Transfers. Divorce filings. Lauren never disclosed potential paternity uncertainty during proceedings. Not once. Which meant the divorce settlement had been executed under incomplete information. And Emma, now legally an adult, had been permitted to believe narrative over fact until it suited her developmental autonomy. The escalation was not emotional. It was structural. 2 professionals had made a long-term decision to protect reputation over truth. They relied on my predictability. They mistook consistency for naivety. They mistook silence for incapacity. They were incorrect. I returned home and opened a new file. Label, 2001, disclosure. Not for revenge. For clarity. Because when foundations are misrepresented, you do not demolish blindly. You excavate. I did not confront Emma again. Not yet. Emotion creates noise. Noise obscures leverage. Instead, I began assembling structure. The first step was legal positioning. I met with my attorney in Denver and requested a full review of the original divorce decree from 2005. Every affidavit. Every sworn statement. Every financial disclosure. Lauren had affirmed under oath that there were no known disputes regarding paternity. The wording mattered. Known. The emails proved probability. The timeline proved knowledge. The financial transfers proved coordination. Failure to disclose material uncertainty can constitute misrepresentation, my attorney said, especially if financial obligations were assumed under false pretenses. I did not interrupt. He continued, "You paid child support voluntarily even with primary custody, correct?" "Yes." "And full tuition through graduate-level expenses?" "Yes." He leaned back. "This is not simply about biology. This is about informed consent and financial inducement." Exactly. The second step was financial tracing. The forensic accountant expanded his scope. We reconstructed every payment I had made related to Emma's upbringing: private school tuition, medical coverage, college savings accounts, discretionary transfers. Total $1. 87 million over 22 years. I did not react to the number. Numbers are neutral. Context gives them weight. We then overlaid that figure against the documented transfers between Lauren and Harris during the early years. The $18,000 deposits now appeared strategic, not supportive. Seed money to ensure silence. The third step was documentation of knowledge. I requested a sworn statement from the lab that conducted the DNA test. Confirmation of when Harris submitted his sample. Date: 6 months prior to graduation, which meant he had biological confirmation long before Emma approached me in New Haven. He allowed the graduation to proceed under celebration. He allowed me to sit in the front row. He allowed applause. That detail mattered, because it established intentional delay of disclosure. I then hired a private investigator not to create scandal, but to confirm current representations. Harris, now dean, publicly advocates ethical leadership in academia. He serves on a university ethics committee. Irony is useful when documented, not when shouted. Lauren holds a senior administrative position in Chicago. Her bio references integrity, transparency, mentorship. Language is currency. I gathered public statements, archived speeches, articles written by both of them regarding professional ethics. Contradiction is more powerful than accusation. Next, I met with an estate attorney. I amended my will, not out of anger, out of structural correction. I removed automatic inheritance provisions and redirected the majority of my estate into a trust conditioned upon voluntary written acknowledgement from Lauren and Harris regarding concealment of paternity. If acknowledgement was refused, the assets would fund a foundation supporting men who discover paternity misrepresentation after long-term financial commitment. The name of the foundation was deliberate, the Informed Consent Initiative. I did not publicize it. Not yet. Then I reviewed tax filings from the divorce year. Had I known the uncertainty of paternity, my financial planning would have differed significantly. Custody arrangements might have shifted. Support structures recalculated. I had been deprived of choice. That is the central injury. Not that I raised Emma, but that the choice was engineered. After 2 months of preparation, the file labeled 2001 disclosure contained archived emails proving probability awareness, financial transfers indicating coordination, divorce affidavit language, DNA lab timeline, total financial contribution summary, public ethical statements from both parties. It was not emotional. It was surgical. I scheduled one final meeting. Location: Denver. Neutral territory. Lauren arrived first. Harris second. Neither knew the other would be present. When they saw each other in the conference room, recognition flashed briefly, then calculation. I began without accusation. I am not here to discuss love, I said. I am here to discuss disclosure. I laid out the timeline chronologically. Emails printed. Transfers highlighted. Divorce language underlined. Neither interrupted. When I finished, the room was quiet. You deprived me of informed consent, I said. For 22 years. Lauren spoke first. You loved her. Yes. Harris remained silent. That was never disputed, I replied. What was disputed was my right to decide with full information. I slid across the table a draft document. Voluntary acknowledgement of concealment of paternity probability prior to divorce proceedings. Lauren read it. Harris read it. You're threatening us? Harris asked finally. No, I said calmly. I am documenting history. And if we refuse? Lauren asked. Then I proceed with civil review of misrepresentation during divorce settlement and establish a public foundation outlining structural vulnerabilities in paternity disclosure. Silence again. They understood leverage. This was not scandal. It was exposure through documentation. You would damage Emma, Lauren said. I have not mentioned Emma publicly, I replied. And I will not. This concerns adult decisions made in 2001. Harris finally spoke. What do you want? Clarity, acknowledgement, correction of record, and funding participation in the foundation, voluntary or court-compelled. I did not raise my voice. I did not threaten reputations directly. I let them consider optics, a dean of ethics, a university administrator, documented concealment. Professional risk is a language they understand. I gave them 7 days. When they left, I remained seated, not triumphant, resolved. Silence had served them for 22 years. Now silence would serve me. They used all 7 days. On the 8th, my attorney received a response. Not from Lauren. Not from Michael Harris directly. From counsel representing both. That detail alone told me everything. The letter was cautious, polite, structured to minimize language that could later be interpreted as admission. They proposed clarifying context, rather than acknowledging concealment. I declined. Precision matters. The second letter arrived 2 days later. Revised language, narrower phrasing. They were attempting to confine acknowledgement to uncertainty rather than knowledge. I responded with the email dated 6 weeks before Emma's birth. If timing aligns with estimates, we cannot risk professional exposure. Timing aligns with estimates is not uncertainty. It is probability management. On day 12, they agreed to meet again. This time, there were no surprises, only terms. The final acknowledgement was signed in my attorney's office in Denver. It stated clearly that both Lauren and Michael Harris were aware of a reasonable probability of his biological paternity prior to Emma's birth. That probability was not disclosed during divorce proceedings. Financial and reputational considerations influenced the decision to withhold disclosure. Subsequent DNA confirmation occurred 6 months prior to Emma's graduation. Disclosure to me was intentionally delayed. Each signature was notarized. Each page initialed. There was no apology. I did not request one. Apologies are emotional currency. Documentation is structural correction. The second component followed immediately. Both agreed to contribute financially to the Informed Consent Initiative, an endowment established under my control but structured through an independent board. Total contribution, $2 million. Not punitive, proportional. The funding agreement contained a clause, public acknowledgement of support for educational reform surrounding voluntary early paternity testing in high-risk uncertainty cases. Carefully worded, non-accusatory, policy-focused. They signed. The public announcement occurred 3 weeks later. A press release from my foundation, not naming Emma, not detailing personal history, outlined the importance of informed parental disclosure and ethical transparency in academic communities. Michael Harris issued a separate statement supporting the initiative. Lauren did the same. No scandal, no headlines, only quiet correction. The foundation launched with 3 objectives. Legal education resources for men navigating late discovery paternity discrepancies. Advocacy for disclosure standards in divorce proceedings when reasonable uncertainty exists. Scholarships for children whose family structures were destabilized by concealment. Not to punish them, but to protect them. I did not attend the launch event. I do not require applause. Emma called me 2 days after the announcement. I saw the foundation, she said. Yes. You're using this against Mom. No, I replied. I am using documentation to prevent repetition. Silence. You're still my father, she said quietly. That sentence carried more weight than the DNA report ever did. I raised you, I said. That does not change. She exhaled. Did you hate me? She asked. No, because I did not. Emma did not engineer the concealment. She inherited it. I needed to know who I was, she said. And I needed to know what was withheld, I replied. Both statements were true. We did not resolve everything that night. Resolution is not immediate. It is gradual reconstruction. I updated my will one final time. Emma remains a beneficiary not by default but by decision. Choice restored is dignity restored. Lauren attempted one final conversation months later. She framed her actions as protection, career preservation, stability, I did not argue. You calculated risk, I told her. You miscalculated duration. She understood. As for Harris, he sent one email after the foundation announcement. I hope this provides closure. Closure is a word people use when they want discomfort to conclude quickly. What this provided was not closure. It was record correction. I still remember the red underline on the DNA report. I still remember the applause in New Haven. But memory now sits beside documentation. Silence can protect a lie, can also prepare a reckoning. They mistook my restraint for fragility. They mistook my steadiness for blindness. They forgot that men who build foundations understand structural stress. And when a foundation is misrepresented, the responsible thing is not to demolish in anger. It is to expose the fault line, publicly, calmly, irreversibly. I am 68 years old. I have built hospitals, schools, municipal towers. But the most important structure I built was not biological. It was parental. Biology creates origin. Integrity creates legacy. They confused the two. I did not. And that is the difference.